guys, this is Ash Kumra. I'm the host of the Confessions from an Entrepreneur radio show. Today's guest is someone who really understands what it takes to make your business dream a fundable success at any cost. Today's guest is Andrew Thomas. He's the co-founder of Skybell. It's a startup pioneering a Wi-Fi enabled video doorbell that allows users to answer their front door from a smartphone. Sounds pretty awesome, right? Well, a lot of other people believe that because get this. Him and his company, Skybell, raised over $585,000 through Indiegogo, and he has clearly taken this company to a whole new level because subsequently after, they were a 2014 CES Innovation Award nominee. Any tech entrepreneur outlet has featured them, everyone from TechCrunch, Fast Company, Engadget. Andrew's been a writer for ventures like Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes. I mean, he's been featured on American Express's web series. He's kind of what I would say a poster child on how to do crowdfunding right. And I'm really curious to learn about his journey and how he got here. So, Andrew, how are you doing today?
Good, Ash. Thanks a lot for that intro. That's very nice of you to say. It's great to be here.
Hey, you're welcome. So why did you want to be an entrepreneur?
Oh, that's a good question. I've always been, interested in and drawn to the kind of this idea that you can create something. And, I didn't always know exactly what that meant. My journey wasn't always that of the entrepreneur, but there was always this curiosity and this creativity that I've wanted to explore. And, from one path to another, it wasn't always so deliberate. A lot of the reasons how I found out that I wanted to be an entrepreneur was by not being an entrepreneur, but still having that passion and that curiosity to explore other things. And so, out of school, I did some things that were entrepreneurial, and I moved to China, and I worked for another company. But again, it was doing something different, following my curiosities, and that led to some opportunities in web design and in SEO. And I just parlayed some things, from one step to another. Ultimately, did some consulting work for a group that was making some GPS hardware, and worked with them for a couple of years, and that's now who is a part of Skybell. So just kind of went from one thing to another, but there was always that desire to want to create great things and do things a little bit differently that sort of drove me down that path.
Okay, well, I want to jump into first, more on your path, but I'm curious about your China experience. What did you learn being in China? I mean, from an American standpoint, it is a foreign country. They have a different way of living, and they're a very successful culture. I mean, China is one of the superpowers, and there's so many awesome things that have come out of China. What did you learn from China?
China was very interesting. So I graduated from USC in 2006, and I got a job working for Google's search team, and I was able to do it remotely. And I figured they'd never find out if I moved to China because I just wanted to do something differently. So I moved to China with my friend from school, and I did that job remotely. And then I ended up working for a Chinese video game company, and they, got my visa, and I was able to stay there for a year, which was my goal. And so working for a Chinese company, helping them with their web design, it was very interesting. The culture is definitely different. Not only the working culture, but obviously the culture itself. You're absolutely right. It's a foreign country. And even though it's developed, and even though it's, in 2006, it was extremely developed. There was, many Starbuckses, and it was a first world country all the way, first world city. You still have to do everything over. You have to learn a new language. You have to learn to get around. You have to learn how to order food again. Everything that you took for granted in the States is now new again. You have to relearn it. And I think that was a big thing I took away, was this idea that you could start fresh and relearn a lot of different things. And when you start retraining your brain to learn a new language and learn new routines, you can start to apply that to other areas of your life to say that, oh, I could live in another country. Well, I could start this business, or I could learn how to code, or why not? Why don't I try this and explore it? And if, I think you put your mind to it and you're determined to make it work, anything's possible. So that was a big thing for me living in China. I would say another big thing was, just how small the world is. that you could be on the other side of the world and operate a business marketing to people on the other side of it. And you can be in lots of places at once, and with the internet and mobility, you can really do a lot. And it makes the world flatter. It makes the world a smaller place. At the same time, moving to China, it introduced me to a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds and parts of the world. It also made the world seem bigger as far as what you could do with it. And I think those two things have made a lasting impression on me. Certainly in the later years as I look back on it, and not necessarily when I was in it, but looking back the years after, you got a sense for just what was possible.
Okay, so it's funny because every time you state these answers, more questions come up because you have such a great background and you have such great perspective. When you talked about diving into their different things, let's say I've never coded in my life, and I decide to go to like a General Assembly or one of these coding academy type places and learn how to code Ruby on Rails. Specifically, when you're launching a business and you want it to like take off, when is it enough to like learn something and try to do it versus finding the best person to do it and you kind of just specialize in your area? Because I guess what I'm trying to say is what's your take on being a generalist versus a specialist in a startup culture?
It's a great question. I think that I've always been a jack of all trades. There's always been that part of me that excelled in a lot of things, but maybe didn't excel in one thing extremely well. And so when I think about taking a coding class, or learning Chinese, or starting yoga, or working out, whatever it might be, I guess you go with your goals, right? You got to inventory your strengths and say, well, I'll probably never be an incredible coder, but maybe I should take this coding class so I can become proficient at it, so that when I might be in a different role in a year or 6 years, whatever it might be, that I could work with programmers to articulate to them what I want, knowing what's really possible. Or maybe I can manage that relationship better with my programmer because I understand what it's like to program. So I never thought, like recently I've taken boxing classes, I'm never going to hop in the ring with Manny Pacquiao. But it was enough for me to say, it's a great workout. I can learn something new, and maybe I can become proficient at it and enjoy it. And so part of China, I learned enough Chinese to get around. I'm never going to be a translator. So I've kind of taken a lot of that into my professional life to say, I might not be proficient in programming or design. Maybe I should read a book on it. Or a lot of it for me was sales and marketing. I read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, dozens of times. And that book to me was sort of a crash course, kind of a hack in how to relate to people better and how to articulate thoughts and connect with people on a better level, so I can persuade and I can influence people and get my points across. So I've always kind of looked at it as know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and foster both.
So let's talk about your company then. Like, what is the role that you have right now at Skybell, and how do you guys divide the work?
Skybell has a great team. I've got a couple of co-founders, and by virtue of our strengths and weaknesses, again, we've all kind of settled on roles that are slightly different than each other. So we have someone who's extremely good at ops, and someone handles the finance, and someone else handles legal. We have a brilliant inventor and chief engineer, and then I kind of slot in and work with our partnerships, and I do more of a strategic role. So I think about how we want Skybell positioned in the market, and I try to establish relationships with the right people that are strategically important, whether they're retailers or big partnerships. Like, for example, we're in Apple's HomeKit, so we're part of that program, and so I'll work with their team to manage that relationship. So my role it's very much strategic now. When we started out, though, it was very much, my role was about marketing and was about getting that Indiegogo campaign going and trying to figure out why people are going to want our product, and then turning that upside down and saying, how can we talk about our product so that people understand it's something that they want? So part of my job would be, working with Joe, who, creates these amazing products, and we'll talk about how we want the products to work, and then I'll take that across the aisle and figure out how to disseminate that to our customers.
Okay, well, let's talk about Indiegogo for a second. How did you kind of make this a success? Like, why don't you? I know you've written many articles on this. You're a poster child for Indiegogo. I mean, I've seen even the CEO Slava, who's an awesome guy, like cite your campaign as one of their boastful success stories, which is rightfully so. Like, what do you think really made your campaign a success?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Slava's a great guy. The whole team at Indiegogo is incredible. I really like them, and I do recommend anybody to seriously look at them as a way to launch their business. The Indiegogo campaign, it's just such a, we look back on it and regard it as a huge, launching pad for us. And to be a small startup with an idea in Orange County, to think that you can go on and create a campaign and show people what you want to accomplish and raise, $600,000 and completely validate your idea, it's extremely powerful. And when I talk about Indiegogo and what it means for Skybell, I always mention that some of the things that VCs and investors use against you early on is you don't have, market traction, you don't have a validation of your idea, you don't have funds, you don't have a brand. A lot of those very same things you can basically satisfy with Indiegogo. So we raised $600,000. There's some funding. The fact that people voted and validated our idea with their wallets is extremely powerful. So now we validated our idea.
You had paying customers. You had paying customers. You didn't just have a website can say I had 100,000 visitors a day. Okay, fantastic. You're like, well, I had over 100,000 backers that gave me as low as $1 to as high as $10 as an example. I mean, there's so much validity in what you just said, and that's cool, man. That's cool.
It's really cool. I mean, we had 4,200 people buy a product that didn't exist at the time they made the contribution.
Wow.
And if that doesn't validate an idea, I don't know what will. So to be able to get that, and then, when you go in and then you try to raise money afterwards, the conversation is completely different. You're a validated idea, you have funds, like you said, we got written up probably by 20 outlets during our Indiegogo campaign. So you've got a little bit of brand equity, you've got some press, you've got some momentum. Another big thing is your product roadmaps. I answered 1,000 emails during our campaign. All these people are sharing what they like, what they don't, what they want to see next. It's incredible. I don't think there's any better way to go to market than on Indiegogo.
I would agree with you about Indiegogo. On a side note, I co-founded a company called dreamingalive.com. It's one of the largest online communities around achieving dreams and goals, and we chose Indiegogo for it. We actually beat our campaign goal, and one of the reasons why is because I think Indiegogo's tool sets and their team is amazing. And disclaimer to anyone who hears this interview, Indiegogo's not a sponsor. There's no solicitation on their end. This is just purely my opinion and Andrew's opinion. But anyways, on a side note, I'm just curious. I want to dive into your success of this campaign. I'm going to throw some fireball kind of questions at you about this. Do you feel that one of the reasons why you were a success, your company was a success, was it because the presentation was amazing, or you were following a trend? Like, I'll give you an example. Right now, if the Apple iWatch is just came out around the time this interview is launching, and things around sensors and big data analytics, especially in the health side, is really hot right now. I mean, Apple boasts that they have a whole health section just on their watch. So if, let's say, you wanted to create a health-related app that leverages sensor technologies or big data technologies, there's a good chance that you would do well on an Indiegogo site. I'm just curious, was there a trend that you were kind of piggybacking off of that helped you make this campaign a success?
I think when we launched our campaign, there were a couple smart home products, products in the Internet of Things or home automation space. You had Nest thermostat, which just blazed its own trail. You had Dropcam. Those products existed, and I think a lot of the tech, early adopter people, they did know that these options were coming out, but I think the timing was good in the sense that it didn't seem so unbelievable, but it was, it's been a year and a half since we ended that campaign, and the home automation industry has just exploded since then. So I think we were at really the early portion of that momentum. I think what led to our success really, and what leads to a lot of successes, is a good video. If you
Okay.
have a good video and you put forth a friendly face and you say what you want to do, and you show people why they would want it, I think you can do a lot of great things. Another big thing is our idea really resonated with a lot of people. I think the idea itself it's a great idea, and I think people could see the value. We could show in a video, you will see who's at your door from your phone. We could really show that
Yeah,
narrative
yeah,
in
that's true.
video very well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I re-looked at your video prior to this interview, and I definitely agree with you about that. The video compelling product was definitely there. On the more tactical end, like how did you figure out the pricings for the perks? I'm sorry, and the pricing and the types of perks. Like, what was your rationale for some of them? Because you have some pretty cool ideas, some pretty cool perks. I mean,
Thank you. That was pretty tricky, but we did a lot of research. So we looked at 20, 25 other campaigns, got a sense for which campaigns seem to have this sort of pricing model, like a product that would retail for $200. We looked at those campaigns and kind of got a sense for what they were doing, and it's kind of an art as much as it is as science. Just trying to figure out what seems about right, like what would we want to do if we saw this campaign, and then the things like the stretch goals, like putting in on demand. Saying if we reach this level, we'll be able to put this feature in. We just saw other campaigns doing it, and to be honest with you, we just took the best from all these different campaigns and tried to see what fit and what felt right with Skybell.
if you had to do your campaign over again, and let's say you were getting mentored by a product similar to what Skybell Technology launched on Indiegogo, and you were getting mentored by that person, like what would you do differently if you had to restart it now, given that crowdfunding has evolved a little bit since you launched your campaign?
Yeah, it's been a year and a half. So if I was doing it now, I would look at all of the cool things people are doing with like affiliate referrals. Where if you like on Indiegogo, they have a whole portal. So if someone uses the link and refers a friend, they can get credit, but there's all these people that are saying, okay, I can give you credit and I can give you a giveaway, or I could try to find ways to, reduce the amount that you need to give me for that perk. Like you could actually save money off your perk. I mean, there's all these different ideas that people are using now. Another tactic is the stretch goal, like I said. So people will, at the end of the campaign, say, this is possible if we get to this level of funding. And it's really is true. Like, you're developing products. Not everything is possible, but if you get more money, you can make things possible. So people do that at the end when we did our campaign, but now people are also doing it in the middle, saying, here's this extra feature that, and they'll structure it as a perk. They'll say, here's a special perk. It's only going to be available for a week, and they'll put it right in the middle of their campaign to sort of give people another reason to get back to that page and see what they can buy, or they can another reason to share something with their friends. So I would say these perks are a lot of ways that you can make your campaign really exciting. And what's cool is that when you put out these perks or these unique positionings, people benefit from it. Like they're getting pretty cool stuff at a decent price and ahead of everybody else. It's really cool. It's where everybody can kind of be happy. So I would definitely spend more time this time around on my perks and sort of the timing of them.
Okay, no, that totally makes sense. I mean, the perks are definitely key, and that's why you're giving the money for it for the campaign. So I love that feature that you mentioned. Curious, where do you see the future of crowdfunding going? And feel free to comment on also the equity side, because I know we haven't talked about that. The angel list or the crowdfunder side. Like, where do you see the future of crowdfunding going?
It's a good question. I think it only gets more and more popular before any of those conversations get finished. I think, the government and everybody's still trying to figure out what to make of it. I mean, when have you ever been able just to solicit funds from people to launch a company in 3 days? I mean, it's incredible. It's a true democratization of funding, and I think it's incredible. I'm a huge fan of it. So I hope that it continues going the way it is. I think you're going to see more efforts to try to regulate it a little bit, because I think some people, it's gotten so big that some people don't realize that it's not a storefront, that they are very much funding the development of a product or a service or a startup. And that's a huge shift from going to Best Buy and ordering a Skybell that's finished and it's on the shelf and it's going to ship in 2 days. And we didn't have a ton of it, but we did have a couple people, like a week after they donated their funds, they said, "Where's our product?" And you almost want to just pause and say, these people completely missed the boat about the spirit of what this and the process of what crowdfunding is. So I think you will see a little more, regulation come in, but I don't think it's going to be so stifling, because there's legitimate businesses that are like, we have 35 people now. I mean, off the back of a crowdfunding campaign, we're not the only ones. So, I mean, look at Oculus Rift. I mean, look at lots of Pebble. I mean, my gosh, these businesses are being started, and it's great for America, and it's great for states and local governments. So I don't think they want to pump the brakes on this sort of innovation and this fast catalyst to creating great companies.
Well, I'm curious, what's next for you and your company? Like, where do you see yourselves going?
What's next for us is what's next for a lot of startups, right? So we've done a great job to get in a position to start building a good brand. And we're, like I said, we're in Best Buy. We're selling well on Amazon. Our version 2 was just released. So in a year and a half, we started from crowdfunding to now our second version of product, which is going really well. And we're getting a great amount of interest from people who want an extra layer of security at their front door. So our next step here is to, make that jump. Getting your first, foundation of users is great, but taking that and sort of scaling up and doubling and tripling those customer numbers, that's our next step. So, we've got a lot of good partnerships coming, and you're going to see us align with some good brands, and we're going to just keep putting this product in front of people, just like we did with Indiegogo. And I think the doorbell will continue to gain market share across home automation products. And then, we'll continue to look at ways to become, more than just a doorbell company. Look how do we become a smart home security company and provide, more services and layers to give people more monitoring and more control over their homes and maybe over their work and their offices. So we'll keep exploring new markets, but it's just, branding, marketing, and starting to do that, B phase, that grows you into a brand most people can recognize.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for doing this interview. And more importantly, thank you for continuing what you're doing, inspiring the many entrepreneurs out there. And I'm certain that someone's going to hear this interview, and if they have a current crowdfunding campaign, they're going to definitely gain some knowledge. And if they haven't done one and they want to consider one, they're definitely going to do it. And best of luck to you and more continued success.
Thanks. If people want to check out Skybell, it's skybell.com. But if people want to look at more tips for crowdfunding, there was that American Express video that we did. It's on YouTube. You can just search for Amex and crowdfunding Skybell. And then I've written 2 articles about what you do after your campaign ends, that anybody doing a crowdfunding campaign should be thinking about that too. So definitely recommend anybody check those out.